read this. In the past 10 years, public education has been revamped with more and more power being handed to the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It is time that we demand accountability from the state legislature and DESE and have productive conversations on how to restore public education by entrusting our local education experts again. Please join us in this conversation as Stacy Shore leads us. And with Stacy, she has brought her husband, Jeff Shore, who is a coach, and I'll let her tell you what he's up for. And so they're going to do a self-introduction and give you a little bit about themselves. A warm Cape Girardeau welcome, Perry County, and St.
Technology is not my thing, so if anybody, it's not advancing. So the PowerPoint, no, but that's okay. I may go to a different format because I have a backup, but it's stuck. So thank you so much. Does anybody know technology in the room?
Damon, please come on up here. It's a Mac. Oh, that's your favorite. That's right. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to get out of the way.
Here, I'm going to let you talk to us 1 second, and then while I talk to him. Babe, this is my husband, Jeff, so introduce me.
I didn't know I was going to do this right now, but that's okay. Anybody here from Jackson High School? Well, Campton Lakers played Jackson in 1995 for the state championship. I don't know if any of you guys were at that game. I was coaching that game. But anyway, we did win that one, by the way. Got down 13. It had a fantastic player named Nathan Norman. I don't know if you guys heard from Jackson, Missouri. We got down 13-0 and held on and came back and won it. But that's my memories of Jackson, the Jackson Indians for sure. And they've had great football. My wife has been, did you get it going?
Definitely give him a second. You go ahead.
She started out, my kids were, we had one in 3rd grade, one in 5th grade, and another one that wasn't in school yet. And she started questioning about the math. Some of you guys remember that way back when, the odd math things. They'd bring home strange things on the math. We were like, I'm not sure what this is, but just do it this way. And so that led to a bunch of other stuff. Made it a little uncomfortable at my work for a while. They were after me a little bit, but we survived it. Ended up homeschooling for a bit, some of our children. Love Camden schools, a lot of great things there. I've been a teacher for 29 years, just retired. Actually, this is my first week retired. It feels pretty good. And I do love public education. I think sometimes people get the wrong idea that groups like this are after teachers, and they're not. They just want to give them the freedom to teach. And so there's some examples I could give from coaching and all that. But Stacy is the expert, kind of a homemade expert. But it's amazing the things that she has learned and the things that have come true from what she's talked about. So she's my wife, but she is one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. She is fantastically brilliant and amazing memory, amazing recollection. So very much an expert in this area. And she does a great job explaining. I'm kind of here for the simplistic part. Like sometimes it's a little over my head, you know what I mean, as an old football coach. So I'm here to slow her down if that gets a little too deep. So I'm here for the simpler minds in the room, like mine. So with all that being said, I'll turn you over to Stacy.
Thanks, baby. So my husband, just know this, that I started fighting and he didn't use the word, he picked a better word. And I'll get into that as I do the PowerPoint. I hung this up. I was one of the original Missouri Moms Against Common Core. So I was one of the moms on the front lines at the school board meetings, just asking questions, simple questions that nobody wanted to answer and treated me really badly for even asking. And they told me just to trust. But I will tell you this, I hung it up for about the last 8 years. I was still watching it all. But the Lord released me because he called me to this fight. I have a very successful business at the Lake of the Ozarks. I have an awesome husband. I had 3 great kids that I was trying to raise, but I couldn't shake it. The Lord was in it. And so my favorite quote came from St. Augustine, and it's like, the truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. You just set it free, and it will defend itself. This presentation tonight, I've done in a format. I did it like in one day. I put all this together. It was super hard because everything I talked about 10 years ago when I traveled across the state with Concerned Women for America, Every single thing has come true that I said would come true. That's super troubling. I looked tonight at Jan and I said, sometimes giving this talk makes me sick to my stomach because I didn't want to be right. But this is about national security. This is about your children's faith. You're going to hear a lot of politicians say, well, we're fixing that in Jefferson City. They are not fixing it, they're advancing it, and they don't even know it. So I'm going to go, I do a presentation really kind of quickly, and so I'm going to go through a lot of concepts. Some of them you'll catch, some of them you won't, but I'm going to give a link to Jan. Every single article that's here will be linked in a hyperlink, so she can give this to you in a link, and then you can study it on your own through the presentation. So I did it, I hope it flows, but here I am. Missouri education, can it be saved? That's a loaded question. And how did we get here? I do think it can be saved. But the question is, you have to understand who you're fighting to know how to fight them best. And that's the thing. These people are really good at what they're doing. Uh-oh, hang on. I gotta figure out how to advance this real quick. I am so sorry. It's not working. Okay, I don't know. Oh, here it is. I'm just gonna go to this.
Sorry.
The history. I'm gonna go through this really quickly. When Common Core was brought, it was called Common Core State Standards Initiative. Do you guys remember Common Core? It was initiative. It's the I at the very end. We're in that part now. Okay, so it was CCSSI. And the big deal I want you to see is the CCSSO. That's the Council of Chief State School Officers. That's a really important component because Margie Van Dieven, she is the head of DESE. She is the incoming president now of CCSSO. Their big agenda is social and emotional learning, SEL. So we're going to talk about that a lot in a minute. Where did it start? It started with Arne Duncan on the left. It was brought in under the Obama administration. It actually started with the Bush administration with No Child Left Behind, but it got ramped up tenfold under Arne Duncan. Standardized testing, curriculum accreditation, and the use of technology became a priority. CCSSO and the National Governors Associations are who brought it to us. That's Margie Van Dieven. And if you look actually, you understand something really important. She has been at DESE since 2005. So when you understand, she has been there for a long, long time under many different governors. This is a key part, so hang on to it because it matters. This just shows that she is the president-elect of the Council of Chief State School Officers, and that's where Missouri's headed into really a dangerous place right away. This guy, his name is Charlie Shields. He was a state rep, termed out, a senator, termed out. As soon as he termed out as a state senator, he was appointed to the State Board of Education. He has been there since 2012. He is currently the president of the State Board of Education, but if you'll notice something interesting, his term expired on July 1 of 2020. No, the governor has not filled his position, and he's still there. He's a very, very important part of what Missouri is dealing with right now. So just remember, Charlie Shields. This guy, the importance of this part is you guys are all hearing about school choice, right? And it's confusing. I'll admit it's confusing. I hope to unconfuse it, the part of tonight that everyone's confused about. But this guy brought in Common Core. A single guy, no children, named David Coleman, the head of the College Board. So he brought in Common Core. You weren't allowed to disagree because it was rigorous. So that's what you're told over and over. It's just rigorous. What did that mean? Well, nobody knew. But he was kind of the architect. So hold on to that because they're kind of playing the same path right now with the guy who's behind school choice, and it's important. What did parents notice first? We noticed the math. So I had 3 kids. I had my middle son. I have a 25-year-old Sophia, and many of you will know Sophia before long if you don't know her already. She's running one of the candidates in the governor's race, Bill Eigel. She's the head of his campaign right now. She's 25. That's my Sophie. I have a son. His name's Bo Shore. He wrote a story about where he grew up. He did a little short featurette movie, and a producer from California picked it up. and they're starting a major motion picture, which is crazy. We know nothing about it. It's a crazy ride for us, but super proud of him. And I have a youngest son named Bear. He's 19, and he just started college about a month ago. And that's been really, really hard on his mama. So here I am traveling. But anyway, when Bo was a third grader, he's 23 now, he would bring home, they put him in what was called reading recovery when he was a kindergartner. And so reading recovery as a kindergartner, I didn't know. I was married to a teacher. I thought, oh, they know best, but he was moving into first grade, so they put him in something called reading recovery. And I was overzealous and went out and bought a magnet board. I bought all the things to teach him how to read. I hooked on phonics. And so at night, I would sit with him, and we would learn how to read. About 10 days later, I get called in. I thought, oh, they're going to brag on me because he was making such incredible strides. I was like, she's like, okay, are you helping him read at home? I was like, yes, I am. And she's like, okay, you need to stop, okay? You're only confusing him. You need to stop. Well, at the time, I didn't even know what the difference was between whole language and phonics. If you guys know what I'm talking about, there's a really big difference. I didn't know the difference. I stopped helping him. He made no progress in the next 2 years until one night he brought home this crazy math. He was really good at math, so I had really high hopes for math. He brought home this math that was full of word problems. So as his mom, we extrapolated the numbers. We taught him how to do 10 plus 10, carry, we would do that 0, we would do the carry, and we would work right to left. All of his problems were right, but everything got sent back wrong, counted wrong. So I called the teacher, and I asked her, I said, hey, I guess I'm just so confused. He was a third grader. His problems are all right. I know they're right. Oh, she said, yeah, it's not about the answers, the correct answers anymore. It's about the accepted process. We give him credit for doing it the accepted way, not necessarily the old-fashioned way. And that's when God pricked my spirit. And I just thought, okay, wow. If you can tell a parent that's smart, that you can't help your kid anymore because we're doing something that's about absolutes, we're going to do it a different way, the new way. You're old-fashioned. So if you can tell a parent that, the biggest absolute in my life is my relationship and my faith with Jesus Christ, right? So if you can come in and say it, so I would try to help him, be like, Mom, don't help, you don't know, it's new, you do it the old way. Something in my spirit just clicked. And I knew that it was way more than the math. So I started really leaning into it, and I started researching. I have a political science degree and a degree in public administration. So I started really leaning in, trying to figure out what I was dealing with. And the more I dug, I'll share a lot of that with you tonight. It's not good. It's not good. Because your kids are in public schools being taught by, in many cases, wonderful people. The administrators are good people, but they've lost all control. I'm from Camdenton. We just flipped our board. We have about a 6 to 1 majority. We were the first school in the state that literally kicked all the COVID mandates out the door, the quarantines out the door, no masking. Our kids could carry their backpacks to their lockers. It was really revolutionary. We're also one of the only schools, there were 2, a small charter in our school, that didn't accept the COVID relief money. We turned down $8 million. I know people say that's crazy, but what I understand is this. $8 million spread out over 5 years, I read it, that's several $100,000 a year. Do you know how much you're spending in technology a year and how much that keeps going up? The low-hanging fruit in our country is real estate taxes. The real estate taxes in your country that pay for your schools, because the majority of them go to your schools, all these billionaires want. But not only do they want your taxes, they want control of your children. So I'm going to speed through a lot of this. What happened was the grassroots rose up in Missouri. We went to the Capitol. We fought really hard. We passed legislation called HB 1490. The Missouri governor signed it. That was Jay Nixon. They appointed work groups. I was on one of the work groups. We never got rid of Common Core. I could write a book about the work group. itself. We rebranded it, we renamed it, and we kept every bit of it. It was a big fat lie. There were some of the moms walking into they're awesome. The Missouri moms that have come into my life are some of my very best friends now. They're the biggest fighters, honestly. I know. That was some of them. I love that picture. What are we dealing with today? Man, I was going to push this one. What is that? Data. They're monetizing your children at an obscene rate. Data is the new oil. Do you know what that means?
All the data that they get on your kids is like gold to them.
That's right. What's happening is every single keystroke on these new tablets that are in front of your children, not only are they gleaning information about your child, their attitudes, dispositions, and beliefs, they're gleaning it about you as the family. When they bring them home and they actually connect to your IP address, your IP address is opened up. They can see your searches too, Google can, and that's a whole nother talk for a whole nother day. Data is the new oil. School is about the monetization of your children. People say, well, that's not happening at my school. Yeah, it is. Bill and Melinda Gates were a huge part of Common Core. They put billions through their foundation into revolutionizing how education was viewed in Missouri. Now Bill Gates is upset about it. Too many billionaires at the table. Well, that's what happens. But Pearson, notice the date, in 2011, Pearson, which is the biggest publisher of textbooks and curriculum in the world, Bill Gates unified with Pearson to bring online curriculum to every school district in the country. That's called a monopoly. This just talks about the virtual learner. Accreditation. What's the devil that we're all facing in Missouri, and why does DESE have so much power? It's something called MSIP 6, the Missouri School Improvement Program, the 6th version. It's being approved right now. The problem is, MSIP 6, every school has to have accreditation. Where's the devil in those details? If you lose accreditation, DESE takes over your school. So they mandate the test, they write the test, they score the test, and they decide whether your school remains accredited based on those tests. So a lot of people will say, we're failing. So DESE says you have local control. Oh, no, I've heard them in so many hearings say you have local control. What does that mean? Well, you have control to do everything they say, how they say, when they say, in order to get all your accreditation points. If you don't do it, well, you have the choice. But if you don't, what happens? They take you over. Most important thing to understand, and if you take away one thing, it's not going to show, if you take away one thing tonight, these tests that everything is anchored to, no one can see. So we're talking about social emotional learning. We're talking about all these different components. We're talking about technology and every little kid having an iPad. But if you take away one thing, these tests, and they'll say, well, we see sample tests. Nobody can see the test. Nobody knows what's being tested. They say they're copyrighted. You can ask any teacher. If there's teachers in the room, they'll tell you I'm telling the truth. So all of this, everything we're dealing with right now, boils down to one test that nobody can see.
Stace, let me ask you, at the end, that you don't know what you've missed or what you've got right, correct? You never get to see the results, right?
So I'm going to give a quick example. I'm a football coach by trade, teacher for 29 years. But coaching is the simplest form of teaching. And it may be the most purest form. In a football scenario, we practice all week long. We prepare our kids. We have a test on Friday night. After that test, the scoreboard kind of shows results, but then the next day, you get together and you grade your players. You say, hey, cornerback, you're outside in player, you didn't do that right, you didn't get the A gap. So you go down, you grade each one of your players, and then you bring them in the next week on Monday, and you show them what they did wrong, and then you correct that, and then you go out and have another test. You work on it all week, have another test. it's very simplistic, but very it's just the essence of teaching, basically. So, and then you get the results the next Friday. But in that also, you get to see what you did wrong. It would be like, as a teacher, that's why I kind of like to defend teachers. They're in a situation where they are getting teaching their kids, but they never know what they've done right or wrong or how to improve them.
Yeah.
It would be like me never getting to look at a football film and say, oh, here's how you can't see it. You can't ever improve what you did. And not only that, not being able to see the test, the hardest game of the year is always the first one, because you don't know what the opponent's doing.
Yeah.
But you have film on them. So you prepare yourself and your students or your players for that test. You're not going to know every answer to that test. You're not teaching the test, but you're going to do the best job you can to prepare them for the opponent you're playing. So you're handicapping teachers in that way by not seeing, showing, or knowing what they've done well or haven't done well on the test. It would be absolutely ludicrous for a coach to go in and never be able to watch film, correct, and retest, you know what you've done right or wrong.
That's how
So
we all grew
I had
up,
that.
right? Like, you take a spelling test and you get it back so your mom can see what you got right and wrong, so you know if you studied the words right, and you can see what to fix. That way you know if your curriculum's working, your instruction's working, if you're actually teaching the right thing. You guys, nobody can see the test. Teachers can't even look over the shoulder of the kid who's taking, yes.
Are you talking about like the math?
The MAP test.
Okay.
It's the MAP test.
The MAP.
But that's what all your lobbyists come in and complain about. Like, look at these horrible scores. These teachers are doing a terrible job. We need qualified teachers. We need choice. These teachers don't know how to teach, but they're not telling you what the root is. And that's what I really want to do tonight. So DESE mandated the test. I was at a hearing in Jefferson City, but we didn't have enough servers. The school districts did not have the technology to be able to do it. So Google was sitting in one of these hearings and they're like, well, that's fine. Guess what? We'll give you the cloud for free. But what they didn't tell everyone is free is not free. They're collecting untold amounts of data on your children in the schools, and they've cornered the market. So that's something I want to look at really quick here with Google. This is a headline that's an old headline, and again, you guys need to read these. Jan can send this out. But it's how Google has taken really over the classroom in the United States. It's disgusting. This is part of our problem with the indoctrination. Adaptive testing, does anybody know what adaptive testing means? Okay, Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium is who Missouri contracted with to administer our MAP test. Adaptive testing means if you three sit at one table, you're all gonna start with the same question, right? But you're gonna answer it the right way, so you move on to the next question. You answered it, not right, neither did you. But you answer, they're gonna ask you the same question another way, and another way, until they get the desired answer. Adaptive testing, when we talk about social emotional learning in a minute, understand how dangerous this is. It's not like saying we have one benchmark, and we're testing against the benchmark. It is a moving target that nobody knows what it is, because you can't see the test. I have asked all of you, so many of your legislators, ask to see the test. Somebody, please, ask to see the test, the MAP test. Ask to see it. But nobody even knows what that, this is all news to them. But your adaptive testing is a really big deal. I'm not gonna go too deeply into this, I'm gonna skip through it. There's a link to this that'll go to LiveLink. In 2013, this was a study promoting grit, tenacity, and perseverance, critical factors for the 21st century, put out by the Department of Education on a federal level. It is appalling. Everyone says I'm so smart. I'm not so smart. I just read these things. They told us where we were headed, and we have gotten there in warp speed. Just real quick, this study says this, that they include beliefs, attitudes, disposition, values, and the ways of perceiving oneself. Compelling evidence suggests that mindsets can have a powerful impact on academic performance in general, and in particular how students behave and perform in the face of a challenge. Okay. But it talks about in interpersonal networks that can enable learners to persist towards goals that for many were previously unattainable. They're talking about technology. in concert with other high leverage factors such as quality instruction, social supports, personal interactions with supportive adults, technology has the potential to significantly impact long-term outcomes. You realize in Wentzville, the school district, like 27 kids went to Barnes Jewish, to the transgender clinic in 1 year, like from one class, saying they were all transgender. When you understand what's happening in our schools, the whole part about supportive adults, like, hey, you're safe, talking about, things with me, that's predatory. It's predatory, but that's what's happening in your schools. This is from 2013. So when I read it again the other night, it just made me sick, because we are there. Again, you need to read the whole report for those that are interested. Ed to Med. Clinics in your school districts. Do you have them here?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, no, I don't know about Kate.
Yes, we did.
They're in
They
Missouri.
just incorporated that this year.
Ed to Med. Your tests are triggered in your surveys. iReady. All these different surveys, your testing. Your kids, there's algorithms embedded in just their simple little tests that is flagging them as having social or emotional issues. You get a call as a parent, hey, little Johnny, something's off. Again, they're measuring their attitudes, dispositions, and beliefs, okay? This is social emotional learning. Johnny's off. We really need to get him some help. We have somebody that can Skype in, telemedicine. We'd like to set him in front of a psychiatrist. I don't want him to go in front of a psychiatrist. He's fine. Well, he's not fine. He says that you are really causing him anxiety. You have social workers in your schools now that came by way of Common Core. Here's the deal, people. You have social workers in your schools, and you have people that can Skype in, telemedicine to your area from Oregon, from Washington State. That's where they're blurring all the lines with legislation. Somebody that you don't see in the grocery store, but they're considering you an educational risk to your child. If you don't give them the medication that the psychiatrist prescribes, you become the risk to your child. Ed to Med, you want to know why kids are getting on birth control, why they're having talks? Let's get a little bit deeper. I just hate giving this talk sometimes because people are like, oh no. Mental health in our schools. You think mental health? Yes. That's something we need to focus on. What is it? You better pay attention when you hear people talk about mental health, because their definition may not match yours. If you're a Christian and your kids, believe in some fictional character and mental health, what does it mean? Well, when your kids are on these devices, because teachers aren't allowed to teach, the devices are standardizing all education across the gamut. That's what Common Core did. And again, I could go way in the weeds for days, but I won't. But we're standardizing everything. Every keystroke, every answer is part of an algorithm. And it's super scary what we're seeing. But they're going to say to you, don't worry, they have protections. I'll talk about that in a second. Charlie Shields. He is the president. This guy's under my skin right now because of the social emotional learning. He makes me angry. This guy, he is the president and CEO of Truman Health. Truman Health just changed to University Health Systems. So the Ed to Med, right here. He is the president of your State Board of Education. His term expired 3 years ago, but he's still there. He's a problem. But what's super interesting, when you go to the website for where he works, they have an LGBTQ specialty clinic. He's driving a lot of this, you guys, your State Board of Ed president. They also received the Champion of Diversity Award, Truman Centers for University Health. They're an LGBTQ healthcare equality leader, the president of your State Board of Ed. This is a video that you all need to watch. It's I've linked it, but it just talks about his position, how he believes diversity and equity and inclusion should look. But here's where we get into the weeds that are important. Who knows what Missouri School Board Association is? The Missouri School Board Association is what's literally indoctrinating your school boards. They're bringing in lawyers as soon, because here's what's happened. Guys like this guy, they're lobbying for laws that force your school board members to go to education, continuing education. They have to. It's the law. But what happens when they go to this continuing education, the problem is that they're scared to death because they have attorneys say, well, you have to adopt this policy and this policy and this policy. So the MSBA lobbyists are lobbying for policies, and then they get hired and they force school board members to do what they're told, or else the school's going to get sued. This is Brant Shields. Do you want to take a guess who he is?
Son-in-law.
Son.
Son.
He is the son of Charlie Shields. That's nifty. Yeah. He's one of the biggest lobbyists he is the chief lobbyist for Missouri School Board Associations. You want to guess who this is? This is Brenda Shields. And guess what? Brenda is a state rep. Yes. Brenda is the higher education chairman in the Missouri House of Representatives. Brenda is on a subcommittee for appropriations for education. She's the vice chair. And she does workforce development, which is code word anymore for education, because we've become China. But anyway, I'm going to go on. I could talk about that for a long time. Data systems held by DESE, surveys, tests, data collected, kids being flagged as mental health issues, intervention. You hear the word intervention. You got a kid, super smart, he can read, he can do math, he's awesome. But he's been flagged. But back to, I want to say this. I never say this and I get in trouble when I get in the car. My son, I told the story about my kids. His intervention was, you just need to stay away. Well, I didn't. I started raising a ruckus. I pulled my son out of reading recovery. You know what happened? I put him with a teacher who could not teach him during the day, what she could tutor him with at night. Within about 8 weeks, he was reading above grade level. He never looked back. He graduated in the top 10% of his class. That's when I stopped trusting. When I saw my son thrive and I stopped trusting, that's when I became just angry about this. But anyway, Jan, you need to tell me when my time is.
You're good. You're good.
Okay.
Well, about 30
This is a rumble. I wish I could play it. Social emotional learning. You guys, this is the crux of everything. This is CRT, critical race theory. It's all anchored here. The whole transgender movement, it's all anchored here. People are looking over here when this is going on right under our noses. Like everyone acts like, we have saved Missouri education because we have this bill, and this is where it's at. So what you're looking at here, see the CCSSO in the bottom? CASEL. CASEL is the anchor point for social emotional learning. AIR is the American Institute for Research. Do you guys realize that children cannot be, or any adult cannot be part of human research unless they know? That's federal law. You cannot be part of a human research experiment without your knowledge. But do you know what's happening? The laws have been twisted such that your superintendent can sign off on a grant for money to research the kids in your school on behalf of all parents. It's happening every day. Every day. I'm not going to go too far into this. Screening, database decision making. This is SEL's toolkit, multi-level prevention system, progress monitoring. They're watching them every time they open their computer, their laptop, their iPad. Somebody's watching. Somebody's watching. MTSS, multi-tiered system supports intervention. Okay? And equity. If you're not equitable enough in your thinking, intervention, we talked about what intervention looks like. It's mental health. Here's the big deal. The whole transgender thing that we're seeing right now, where kids are literally being mutilated, it's all anchored in Planned Parenthood. People don't understand that. CASEL, see that little logo at the top? Get real, comprehensive sex ed that works. This is actually from Massachusetts. and recommend academic performance standards relating to 1/2 unit of credit. It's mandatory for every kid that graduates. Health and family education required by the board. It talks about who the work group shall include: nonprofit organizations that focus on public health, parenting, and social services. Ooh.
Hello?
Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, if you just do a tiny bit of research, they have a whole section on health education that's known as sex ed. Castle does the same thing. This is what's happening right under our noses, and your conservative Republicans are driving the ship. And just so you know, I was in the Capitol the last 2 days of session reading. I literally read over 1,000 pages of language a day the last 2 days, and I just wept for our state because I understand what they did. I won't go too far. SEL is CRT, state longitudinal data systems, data privacy. I'm going to skip through. This is Camdenton, just something to know. When your kid gets an iPad or a computer, all of these, there's more than this. There are literally dozens of apps that are front-loaded onto that system. All of them have user privacy use technology agreements, every single one of those apps. And they know that when your kid comes home and says, "Mom, please just sign off on this." Well, now guess what you do? You're like, "Oh, okay, you got a million things going on. It's May." It's like your kids say, "Mom, I'm the only kid who doesn't have my technology use agreement." You're like, "How do I do it?" It's a link. You click the link, you check the box, and you're done. Unless you're me. I printed off every hyperlink, every link. There was over 245 pages in just one portal. And when I wouldn't let my son use it, and I said, "No, I'm not doing it. He can have his own computer. He can go to a network out of the school. He's not using his Missouri Moses number to sign in." No, because they're tracking his number.
The humorous part of that was that she, out of all the people in her school district, she might have been the only one that read it, because the actual waiver was for another school district.
It was, and I said, "You guys are morons," because I asked my superintendent, I said, "This says for like North Huckleberry School District. Did nobody read this? This isn't even for us." But I did, and then I had to sit down with 9 teachers, administrators telling me that my son really needed the technology. I said, "You can find a way." I said, "I'm sure you understand that Google literally is exploiting kids every single day." So anyway, I'm going to move on. Let's see this. This is important. This one's loading. You're going to have, if you have kids in here and you're listening to me, you need to get this part, okay? They're going to say we follow federal laws and guidelines. We would never expose your children. This is what you need to understand. There's 2 laws, FERPA and COPA. FERPA, for school-based activities, teachers and school administrators may, where allowed by applicable law, which is federal law, act in the place of parents or guardians to provide consent for the collection of personal data from children. Those front-loaded apps, a lot of times your geolocation, your location, they're turned on. So when little Johnny walks out of the school and he gets on his bus, predators, they know latchkey kids. They can see where they're tracking. That is not something that's turned off. People need to understand that. But this is what's happening. They're giving this consent. This is COPA. This is federal law, but listen to what it says. COPA applies to commercial companies and limits their ability to collect personal information. Awesome. From children under 13. These programs must provide parental notification and obtain parental consent before collecting personal information from children under 13. I want to pause. Personal information. That's not aggregate, okay? That's their name. That's their address. That's what their mom and dad's name is. PII is personally identifiable. It just makes me so mad. Information identifies children personally. I mean, really take that in. So they're telling you, they're being honest. The law permits the district to consent to the collection of personal information on behalf of all of its students, thereby eliminating the need for individual parent consent given directly to the third-party operator. The technology user consent form allows the district to act as an agent for parents in the collection of personal information within the school context. You know, when you check the box, you don't realize it, but people are giving their children over to Big Brother. FERPA, same thing. FERPA says really the same thing. Any contractor with the school can have all their PII. There's no protection there. Google, I'm going to skim through this really quickly. I want to get to the end. Google, you guys need to understand this came out last week. If you don't know this, what can we change in our schools? We can get Google out. Google just announced last week a worldwide ban of independent media searches, independent media from search results. They're in your schools. They are the desired search engine. You want your kid to be able to look up some conservative point of view? It ain't gonna happen. Not in a public school. Not anywhere where where Google is at. This is an article. I've hyperlinked it for you. This was a lawsuit that just got settled a couple weeks ago. The Republican Party, the RNC, filed a lawsuit accusing Google of spam filters and bias in the last election. The judge threw it out, but it was a huge deal. I'm going to skip. I don't want to take too much time. I know people are going to have questions. SEL, right now, what can you do right now?
Get your kids out
This,
of public school.
This right now, if your kids, even if your kids aren't there, you can do this. The SEL, this is a link. You can actually make public comment against it. DESE, your State Board of Ed, in the last meeting is making law, which they have no power to do, but they just did, social emotional learning. It's super scary, and there's public comment going on. Do you know what ESG stands for? It's the environmental social governance. It's what's happening in China. Social credit scoring. SEL is ESG for schools. They're creating a database for your kids that will follow them cradle to grave. So this is school choice. I want to get into this. I want to get into this because it's really important. Everybody wants a choice. I homeschooled my youngest until he was 13. My husband had the highest profile job in our community. My father-in-law's in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. Football is king where we're at. He got threatened when I said, "Oh, fine, I'm just not going to fight every day. I'm just going to homeschool him."
Fortunately, we won a lot of football.
Thank you, Jesus, because it was rough. But I just said, I'm not going to fight with him every day, because I'm going to fight every day. So to save him the turmoil, I did homeschool. That is the ultimate form of school choice. I am 100% for choice. I'm 100% for it. But what Common Core has done, and this is a really important part, this is Corey DeAngelis, the spokesperson, poster child. He has his picture taken with every Missouri politician, mostly Republicans, because Republicans believe in choice. And it sounds really good, you guys. I'm for choice, but you better know what you mean when you say choice. Corey DeAngelis, there's an invitation. I don't think that was it, really. Oh yeah, it was. I got to tell you about this real quick. So look at this invitation. This actually is on the Show Me Institute's website. Corey DeAngelis is the David Coleman. Remember David Coleman, the architect of Common Core? This is his counterpart for school choice, because it works so well with a single guy, unmarried, no children, kind of white guy, expert on everything, education, but he didn't have any kids in school. Well, they've done it with this guy for school, because it worked well that time, they thought. So they brought this guy to the table. This is, if you'll notice, the invitation is for a reception September 6th at 5 o'clock at the home of Rex and Jeannie Singfeld. Do you know who that is? Okay.
No, I don't know who they are.
Okay, sorry. So Rex Singfeld is one of Missouri's richest billionaires. He's one of the richest men in Missouri. His background is very interesting. He spends more money as an individual than anyone else does in our state in politics. He has a huge interest in school choice because it's a rich man's game. So again, Rex Singfeld is like, there's an article that's linked here too, guys. But you'll see at the Show Me Institute, it's his deal. He's the president of the Show Me Institute. So if you hear things from the Show Me Institute, sometimes it's good stuff. Education, they are owned by this guy. So you gotta just know who the players are. And after a quiet year, Rex Singfeld donations start to pile in. This was last year. And if you'll notice this, it says Rex Singfeld, a retired investor, St. Louis, didn't make a single political contribution in 2021 until December 11. Since then, he has donated $675,000. Most of that comes from two $250,000 checks, one to political action PACs. If you want me to come back sometime and show you the dirty, if you guys wanted to see the dirty, you'll see all the money that's flowing into all these PACs. Millions and millions and millions. But anyway, it talks about how much he's given. We can see most of it. I have articles linked that Jan can share with you. But here's a really important piece. David Jackson is one of his chief lobbyists. He also works for someone called, Schleiermacher, Jorgen Schleiermacher. So I can't remember the first name of the other guy. It's there, Gamble Schleiermacher. Have you ever heard of the Right Path PAC? Anybody?
Yeah.
Right Path PAC. Do you know who Mike Moon is?
Yeah.
So Mike Moon, as principled as he is, the conservative caucus, those are good men. They've been really good men. They've stood in the way of what a lot of people will call progress, but they're not, they're unwieldy. And I've watched them, I've sat and watched them in person, and I am so thankful for them. But they created a lot of hardship because here's what happens. Right Path PAC is all Washington University rich people that have put in hundreds of thousands of dollars. Overnight, they donated $2.4 million into something called Right Path PAC. Jorgen Schleiermacher is the principal lobbyist in Missouri. He was in charge of it. This guy works for him. He also works for Rex Singfeld. Remember the sex ed bill I just told you about? That was his bill. He peddled that bill. This guy did. Right Path PAC, Washington University. You know when we fight abortion in the Capitol and we go to all these hearings? Do you know who fights us the most? Washington University, which is Barnes Jewish. All of their doctors come in their lab coats and they fight for abortion. WashU takes the babies that are aborted and they do research on them. When the Missouri Planned Parenthood was shut down, the biggest fighters of that was Washington University. So Right Path PAC actually represents Washington University, or their benefactors. It's not technically Washington University, but they're the people that are on their foundations, their boards. So we understand the guy that fought for the sex ed piece, the tie that WashU has to Planned Parenthood, and then you look at this guy, David Jackson, he was the one peddling HB 447, the Holly Raider language, which is weird. But it's not weird if you start to make these connections. I'm almost done. Kate Cassis, you just gotta know, this little gal right here, this is what I want you guys to know about school choice, because these people are fighting for school choice. Kate Cassis, I remember her well. She was way younger, 12 years ago. But she worked for something called SEAM, C-E-A-M. I'm not really sure what the acronym is. I have it on the next slide. She was the chief lobbyist. When we would testify against Common Core, because she would be the one to testify for it, she is the chief lobbyist for Rex Singfeld and another company called Nexus. She fights for school choice relentlessly. This year, Andrew Koenig had a bill. Do you know who wrote the whole bill for school choice? Open enrollment. Kate Cassis. So understanding Kate Cassis's history, SEAM. State Policy Director Kate Cassis testifies, so she worked for SEAM. This is to show you that. Common Core, this shows you the position of SEAM is common sense for Missouri. SEAM now, they have a really hard time because people are catching on to all these connections that we're making. So the issue becomes they're changing the verbiage. It's not school choice. I just noticed they just changed this today. I didn't notice before. Now it's called parental choice. If you want your kid to go instead of Cape Girardeau to Jackson, you have a choice. You can move. But what's happening is the bills that are being written, they're all based on equity and perception of equity. Not every kid can go. And what happens when a third of the kids leave Cape? But that's not really what they're looking for. They're looking for charters and virtual ed. It's way bigger than just moving from school district to school district. Because with Common Core, everything has been standardized. DESE's made sure of that. Remember accreditation. So when you think you're gonna move your kid to a better school, the tests are the same, the curriculum's the same, the teachers may be nicer, and that matters. But everything they're doing is being totally standardized. Even in your private schools, they're taking state and federal money. If you think it's not there, it's there. It's all there. Again, you'll just see these are the components. This is STEAM, workforce readiness, parental choice, virtual ed. Rex Sinfeld is a big piece of this. Right Path PAC, this was the money. Missouri Federation of Children, American Federation of Children is Corey DeAngelis. American Federation of Children, the Missouri version is Missouri Federation of Children. They just gave, Missouri Federation of Children contributed $22,000 to Right Path PAC. They're not our people. You understand the connections that we trace through money. You're gonna hear them talk about zip code. If you listen long enough to school choice, the first people to really hammer zip code were the Democrats. Under the Obama administration in America, your zip code or your socioeconomic status should never determine the quality of your education. And that is true. That is true. But they use that as the gateway, and they prey on minorities. They prey on them. And it's not fair and it's not right because it's not making things better. It's rich men with agendas that are really driving the school choice narrative. The Hunt Institute, just know this, our Commissioner of Ed just got appointed to the Hunt Institute, so did Arnie Duncan. You see where we're headed, right? With social emotional learning. Missouri will be on the forefront of driving it. SEL is CRT, it's trans movement, it's DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, it's all of it. We're looking over here, they're doing it over here, right under our noses. And my question was to Andrew Koenig one day. I came in and I said, you're gonna write this bad bill. I read it. And he's like, well, just mark it up, it's fine, just mark it up. And I did. He made not one change. And I said, here's the deal, Andrew, you're a great guy. I knew Kate Cassis was writing it. I said, but it's gonna leave this building. I've watched this happen over and over again. It's gonna leave this building, and then they're gonna start doing everything that you profess that you're against. But you can't say, hey, Desi, bring it back in, we're gonna fix it now. It never works that way. Not ever. So your lawmakers who all say, well, I hate Desi, and they all do, what can you do? I'm wrapping it up. There's a Substack, Gail Griswold. If you don't know her, you should know her. She is the president of our school board. She is a firecracker, she is brave, she is bold, and she has led better than anybody I've ever seen lead a school board. I get goosebumps right now talking about her. I could cry. Because she really believes in children, and she believes in freedom, and she believes in liberty the way our founders really believe in it. And she has led, and she doesn't care how hated or persecuted she is. And I am so proud. We were one of the only schools, a charter school of 50 students, and our school, the only 2 school districts to turn down COVID money. Because you know what happens? I'm gonna tell you this real quick. If you take that money and you divide it up into $400,000 a year, that's all because it says in the fine print where you have to spend it. It's going to more technology and more technology because MSEP 6, the accreditation model, demands it. So in 5 years, when that money runs out and you are hooked on that technology like crack cocaine, because if you don't have it, guess what happens? Well, Desi takes over your school. But guess what happens? You don't have money.
I'm sorry. I start talking and then I start coughing.
Excuse me. But in 5 to 6 years, when it's out, the money's out, guess who they're going to come back to? You. Because they're going to need that technology. They have no way to pay for it. And that's what these grants do. They intend to hook the schools. You may have to help me. I am almost done. Gail Griswold, local control Mo. Local control Mo. Mo is a Substack that she writes for.
Yeah, that's not Gail though. The picture.
That's not her. That's Margie Van Diemen. Okay, that ain't my girl.
I just wanted to know.
Yeah, but that's her Substack. She writes it like it is. She is awesome. Check her Substack out. The other thing you can do, Survey Monkey. You go to Desi. You can speak against SEL right now. There have been hundreds of people that have actually had a comment add yours. Excuse me. And this is the truest answer. Senate Bill 85 was something my really good friend, Missouri Mom Against Common Core ally for 12 years. We've been very, very good friends. Jill Carter got elected to the Senate. My daughter ran her campaign. She put out a bill that's for true local control. It tells Desi, hey, get out of here. We want true local control. We want out of MSEP. We don't want your money. Because you know what? If you don't take the state's money and the federal money, I know people are shocked. You'll have plenty of money. Because to do everything they make you do costs way more than they ever give you. So for the schools that feel like they can do it and kick Desi to the curb, it is making major waves. It won't be 85 next year. Pay attention to this bill. I think we can actually accomplish this because this is the truest form of school choice. This is pure choice. Take the boot off the neck of your local school district and you'll see choice. But the way it is now, everything's the same. Sorry. And I think, and here's my last thing. Demand to see the test. This is the last slide. When we don't know what our kids are being tested on, we don't
Talking
know.
about the MAP test.
This is the MAP test. If you as a teacher, you can't even look over their shoulder to see what's on it. They're adaptive. We don't even know if the curriculum that we're spending millions of dollars on is working. Because the one test that gauges everything is invisible, and they say it's proprietary, and it's copyrighted. We should have nothing in our school district that parents can't see, the community can't see, teachers can't see, superintendents can't see. But how do you improve instruction if you can't see the test? If we're really going to take back our schools, we have to start speaking with a common voice. School choice is really getting Desi out of the way. They're driving the ship of choice because guess what? When it comes to charters, this is my last thought. Have you ever heard of someone named Fethullah Gulen? I have to tell you this. I gotta go there.
I gotta go there.
I gotta go there. I'm gonna leave with this. In the state of Missouri, there's a charter chain called the Harmony Charter Schools. You can go to a 2014 60 Minutes episode by Leslie Stahl, and it talks about this man named Fethullah Gulen. He is an Islamic cleric, and they own the largest chain of charter schools in the whole world, actually. The problem is, guess who gets to choose who wins the charters? The last I counted, there were 8 of them in Missouri, but when you have a charter, they still take your tax dollars, and some of them can be good. But your charter schools, kids go by lottery, they take your tax dollars, and they have unelected boards. It's in my opinion, the gravest form of taxation without representation. Do a tiny bit of research into Louisiana, New Orleans. They're some of the wokest, most liberal schools in the whole United States. The KIPP charter chain, Harmony charter chain. But when you think of a charter opportunity, just realize when you hear school choice, and you think, well, yeah, I want my money to go to a private school. DESE isn't letting your money go to a private school unless they control them. DESE isn't letting your money go to a charter unless they control them. Guess who gets to choose who wins the charters in the state of Missouri? DESE. That's not choice. So we just need to start talking with the same voice and realize we have a problem. Technology is a problem. The lack of local control is a problem. DESE, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. They're a problem. But there is hope. There are good people willing to run for office. One person can plug a really big hole. One person can make a huge difference. I just appeal to every person out there. You're not too old. Even if you don't have kids in school, Kim, thank you for running and being brave. I forgot your name. Thank you for going to the meetings. There was a meeting in my town tonight I wanted to be at so bad. We're fighting license plate readers. So it will be packed, and I love my community. We say these meetings are better than reality TV. Like, I can't wait to get in the car and turn on the live feed. But I thank you for your time, for listening. I would love to take questions, but get involved. Don't stop. You're making a huge difference. Whether you realize it or not, they get super nervous when informed people that understand what's happening show up. That's what scares them. The truth and knowledge are terrifying to the people that have agendas. And when you know what's going on and you can speak to it and you understand it, and shoot your shot, be bold and be brave. It's worth it. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, I told you that would be good, right? Is anyone disappointed? Okay, I knew that. Now I should pass the donation buckets, right? Because 100% of it tonight goes to Stacy and her husband. We are going to entertain questions. We have time. Oops, why did I turn that on? It's 6:39, so we're going to entertain questions, and I know everyone has a lot. So we'll just throw up a hand, and we'll try to walk around. Yes, Kim, are you going to?
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. And you know what, you guys? Has anybody, I've always talked about reading a piece of legislation, this and that. It's boring, right? And this woman has read, you can't stand up here and have all of this. She has read and read and read every single word. So you guys, hats off. Okay, questions?
It's hard to do because I actually said to our school board that I had watched the hearing at the end of the session where they were throwing money at everything. You remember that? And one of the school board members said, "Do you not have anything better to do?" And I thought, yes, I do have something better to do, but this is more important today. Here's the challenge that we have here. Our school board has no idea that they have local control.
Yeah, it's true.
They think that they answer to MSBA. Every policy comes down through them. They rubber stamp everything. They think that I'm nuts to point it out. I actually gave a 5-minute presentation about how powerful they could be. And they don't believe that that's who they are.
You know what I say to that is that when you choose to be elected, there's a heavy weight that comes with that, because if you're a believer, if you're a Christian, you're accountable to people who put you there. If God creates a gateway for you to be in office, you're accountable to Him. I mean, you're supposed to be a good shepherd, right? So those people don't understand, you're right, the power. Our school board, Gail Griswold, and our school board, it's not just her, they've been really, really brave. And I just can't say enough about the pushback that we're watching. And you know what happens? Like Gail says, let them sue us. When there was a federal mandate that all bus drivers, because there's federal funding that goes to transportation, were supposed to all wear their masks. Well, we had released that mandate from our school district, and she said no. So actually Biden got on, and said, all school bus drivers in the country have to continue wearing masks. And our school board said no. And somebody's like, well, we're gonna lose our funding. He's like, we'll sue. She was like, we'll just sue them. So it's that attitude of, you know what's happened? Nothing, because you hold the power. But you let these attorneys from the Missouri School Board Association make you all scared, and it's to be brave and to be bold and say, fine. But they're terrified to really do anything because they don't want an example made of them. And if we all find each other and continue to find each other, and we grow this alliance like We the People and all the good work that you're doing, this is catching fire across our state. The truth is like a lion, right? You set it free. You don't have to defend it. It will defend itself. And I truly believe that's what's happening. But to your point, it's time for people who are elected to be courageous. I mean, what it must have been like, right? To be one of the founders of our country. But we're in those perilous times. And it's time to find our voices and be bold. And like I said, I mean, I love being here and I'm super honored. This is not my jam, being a speaker. I don't think I'm that good at it, but I'm called to it.
That's funny.
No, I don't think it's weird. I gotta have a PowerPoint. If it doesn't work, I'm like, oh my gosh. But I feel like the Lord's calling me to this fight for this moment. And when He releases you, you kind of know, and He says, take a break, kid. And then 10 years happen, and I'm like, oh, here I am again.
We are glad you are.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything you had to say tonight, Stacy. I know it's a lot. It's a lot for a lot of people. Even just one area of study can take you down such deep rabbit holes that you feel like you can't see your way out. So I understand. I can relate to what you're saying. God calls you. You know, people ask me, why are you doing what you're doing? Who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? And so I'm glad that you brought up Holly Rader. She and I were at a local meeting a couple of months ago, and I actually mentioned the legislation that you were talking about that she was responsible for. Yes. And visibly, you could see her demeanor change. She is, and I'll go on record saying that she is not the person that you think she is. Okay? Her demeanor visibly changed, and she became very ugly toward me about that and said, all right, so you know a lot about this. So you know, there's this group that's been after me and they're trying to connect it to Planned Parenthood and you obviously know a lot about this, and you know, it was really ugly. And the people in the audience were like, wow, like they were shocked. And so, so yes, I'm glad you brought that up. But my question to you is, and I have my ideas on this, there's an ultimate goal through all of this. And so my opinion is, you know, obviously they want to dumb the kids down so they can't think for themselves, which allows them to control them to an even greater degree. Do you have a differing opinion on that, or?
So before I got into the education fight, what happened at my lake, and I was just living life, okay? I had 3 kids, I was super busy, I had a really busy husband, I was living life, but I saw real estate. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission came into our area because we have a lake there, and there's a dam, and they actually had, it was a federal order that we had to rewrite like our whole Ameren, their plan for the dam. And with that, they condemned 1,500 houses to be removed from the shores of our lake, torn down. Now, I'm a real estate agent, but I'm also, and I've done it for that time for like, how long have I done it for? A long time. I've done it for a long time. And so I just said, okay, we're a different kind of lake. We're not a core-owned lake. And we have rights. We have deed rights that are explicit. They can't do this. So I led the fight against the Federal Energy Regulatory because I was just dumb enough to do it. But you know what? By standing up and saying, hey, we have rights, you can't do this. And I started bringing out all of the data, all of our deeds, what all of our deeds said, all of the history. We actually partnered with Oklahoma and the state of Washington, and we won. And I'm so off track because I started talking about, what was that? How many? But what was it? But how I'm linking that back to you. Say that again.
What
The purpose. I started studying Agenda 21. Because you know why? People started seeing us on the news. And you saw old guys in overalls, and I'll start crying, and I'm not a crier, but it still makes me so mad. You see all these old people that all they had was in their house. All the equity was all the savings they had, and their house had been X to be torn down. And it changed me. Because if nobody was willing to stand up for them, where would they go? So the purpose, what happened is we made national news. Of course I did. I didn't need to. I really don't like being on the news. My daughter does, but I don't. But what happened is all these people from the California area, the state of Washington, Oregon, the people, the Voy Finnecans people, all the people from out west started messaging us saying, this is Agenda 21. Do you know, I thought, what? And then of course, like he would laugh at me because at night I became fixated. It was like 2:30 in the morning and my face would be in bed because I felt it was the right thing to do. I just needed to be by him. But I had all my work done, my kids were in bed, and my face would be illuminated blue at 2:30 in the morning, and he'd look at me, he goes, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing. I realized my drawer reading. But what I realized was Agenda 21 was a real thing. It's a United Nations plan. It's explicit. It's not hocus pocus. It's laid out. Corey DeAngelis, the school choice guy, he was a writer for the Think Lab for the United Nations UNESCO. So when you ask me what's really behind all of it, the United Nations, Marxism, communism, it's an agenda that's driven by the United Nations, in my opinion, and it's ugly. It's Marxism at the core. People don't understand fascism, but where everything's being driven by contract with these public-private partnerships, I give a whole talk on Agenda 21 because I've lived it. This is Agenda 2030 now. That's what this is. This is United Nations. They're trying to make us global citizens, and I will fight that to the death. I'm not a global citizen. For every veteran who fought for our country, I am proud to be an American. I'm not a global citizen. I am a proud American. And I will fight until I have no breath left for what that means to me. It's precious. And that's why I'm here, because it means something to me.
Me too, Stacy.
All right. So we have a question over here. Someone asked about Venmo or PayPal. I know they're not expecting anything.
No,
Don't talk back, Stacy.
No.
But I do have a QR code. I know nothing about it, but I do have it. So if someone wants to use that from my phone, I'll hang out afterward. Okay. So we have a question here. I'm going to let Angela ask her question, and then Jerry, and then Brenda.
No, I don't have a question. I was just agreeing with what you
Thanks. So Stacy, thank you for being here. And Jeff, I heard you speak 10 years ago in Farmington, and I was, you were on fire then, and you motivated me then to get involved with Common Core. So I think you're anointed. I think Jesus is calling you out to be a leader again, and I'm inspired by both you and Jeff being here tonight, so thank you. I was a teacher at Catholic schools during the pandemic, and I was a youth minister before that, and then God called me into teaching, and the pandemic 2020, I think, pushed Catholic schools, Lutheran schools, and public schools into Google. I think was part of the agenda. Just so people are aware, as a teacher, Google's pretty nifty. Students use slides, teachers use slides. Teachers are being evaluated as well with the lesson plan they're creating, especially in the private Christian schools, the Catholic and the Lutheran schools. There's also sheets where we can create tests on there. There's also where they can write their essays. I was a middle school English teacher, and they wrote essays. Religion teachers have them write journals on Google Doc. As a middle school English teacher, I chose for them to keep their journal in a notebook because I knew some of this. There's just a lot of features other than it just being a Google search engine. And it's also affecting our Christian schools. And I do believe it's tied to ESG.
100%.
So my question to you is just, you know,
how do we avoid it? I am gonna say, I do wanna share this story. It's a very cool story. I taught in Cape County at a private school, in St. John County at a private school. Both of those Catholic schools use Google to the nth degree. And many teachers had to quickly learn how to use Google through the pandemic. I was one of them. So like, I had one parent, conservative Christian, traditional Latin Mass family, come to me and say, my child will do nothing this year on Google. So that meant I had to print tests for that person. That child typed their essay on a typewriter with corrected tape. That's the only way I know how to avoid it. How do you avoid it?
It's a great question. Just know this, I'm pushing hard. My school district, in a K through 4 minimum, it's the starting point to get away from technology altogether. Guys, there's so much research on what it does to the human brain. Developmentally, your kids need to learn to hold a pencil, to be able to write, even in cursive. It helps their speech. It helps their, I learned this from my homeschool mom. I don't think I'm a good teacher. My kids turned out okay in spite of me. But the developmental part, and being a teacher is so dangerous in my opinion. And what we're doing, the pornography portal that kids are being exposed to with school technology in middle school and high school, until we can really, we need I get we need some technology. It doesn't have to be Google. And if we could create a law in Missouri that really banned Google from our classrooms, YouTube is censoring Christian content, conservative content. YouTube is Google, right? Does everybody know that? As long as they're going to censor, we should not allow one thin dime, not one thin dime, to go to any Google supports at all in our state. So I know this, the teachers, there's pushback post-COVID because it's harder. Because it's easy. It's way easier. And I'm not dogging teachers on that at all. It's just easier. But that's where teachers are going to have to be given freedom again. To be given freedom to really reach kids and teach. But I believe that we're going to have to, in my opinion, at our school board, and they're going to look at banning technology K through 4 to start, and then doing an ease into technology, but we have to have filters. You guys, the sex trafficking, the predatory practices, one of the slides that I zoomed through, the FBI in 2018 put out a warning to all public school parents whose kids had technology. And it said there are predators watching your children. They're turning on their cameras. They're tracking them with the GPS. They're literally engaging them in chat rooms and gaming from their school devices. A lot of kids can't afford a device, but the school's just like, here you go. When they're like 5 years old. The FBI has warned that it's incredibly dangerous. Not for all the developmental things I've talked about, but literally for the safety of children. Sex trafficking, mental health issues, suicide is at an all-time high with our youth. The statistics are really sad. Did I talk about that 10 years ago? I knew where we were headed.
A lot, you said 10 years ago.
That's come true, and it's worse. And that's the burden of being here. I feel like I'm part preacher, part teacher, I don't know. But I believe that the prophetic, I didn't want to be right. I didn't want to be right, but I've been right about everything, and it's worse. The transgender deal, when 2 + 2 isn't 4, I never thought it would evolve to boys aren't girls are boys, and boys are girls, and you can't say anything about that because that's what's accepted. I never thought it would evolve. I knew it was going to be bad. I never thought we'd get to that.